The shutdown may be ending soon.
We're going to be opening up our country.
But the fight in the Democratic Party is just beginning. The Post's D.C. bureau chief Josh Christensen helps explain. Plus, will your holiday travel be smooth sailing now? When will government paychecks arrive? And when can things get back to normal? I'll get into just how the government is going to reopen. And the International Olympic Committee is set to ban all trans women from competing in female events. What led to the decision and when will it take effect? Those stories and more today, Tuesday, November 11th. I'm Caitlin Becker, and this is the New York Postcast. There's a civil war brewing in the Democratic Party. And before I get into the nuts and bolts of reopening the government, I want to tell you about the absolute meltdown going on with the Democrats. The vote that busted the filibuster keeping the government closed on Sunday night included 8 Democrats and 52 Republicans.
We have support from enough Democrats, and we're going to be opening up our country. It's too bad it was closed, but we'll be opening up our country very quickly.
Now, it's worth noting that 2 of those 8 Democrats are retiring after next year, and the other 6 are not up for re-election in 2026. So that might explain their willingness to cross the aisle. All 8 are also more ideological centrist, and their vote enraged the more progressive wing of the party, who believe after 40 days of a hot mess, they walked away with nothing. But the far left members aren't training their anger at their colleagues. Instead, they have just one target, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who voted no. California Congressman Ro Khanna posted on X, quote, "Senator Schumer is no longer effective and should be replaced. If you can't lead the fight to stop healthcare premiums from skyrocketing for Americans, what will you fight for?" And some progressive Senate hopefuls planning to run in the 2026 midterms shared similar sentiments. Even Stephanie Shaheen, who's running for Congress in New Hampshire, she bashed the vote. Why is that significant? The sitting senator from the Granite State who voted yay is Jean Shaheen. Yeah, her mother. It's all more evidence that the party is more or less rudderless right now. The high fives and pats on the back last week after the elections have just not solved the problem of what the Democratic Party stands for or who's leading it. President Trump is threatening the BBC with a $1 billion lawsuit over doctored footage of the speech he gave on January 6, 2021, before the Capitol riot. A whistleblower told the Telegraph newspaper that editors spliced together 2 clips of Trump where he says, quote, "We're going to walk down to the Capitol and then I'll be there with you and we fight. We fight like hell." Now, those 2 statements occurred 50 minutes apart, but putting them together makes it look like he pretty directly instructed supporters to storm the Capitol. The manipulated footage was included in an episode of the program Panorama. BBC Director General Tim Davie and BBC News CEO Deborah Turnus have already resigned. In a letter obtained by the Post, the president's legal team has given the BBC until Friday at 5 p.m. to, quote, "retract the false, defamatory, disparaging, and inflammatory statements made about President Trump." BBC Chair Samir Shah issued a statement to a UK parliamentary committee apologizing for the, quote, "error in judgment" that led to the clip. The International Olympic Committee is reportedly ready to ban transgender women from competing in all female categories. The Times of London reports that the change is set to be announced early next year. Under the current policy, trans women have been allowed to compete in the female category as long as tests reveal reduced testosterone levels. But the final decision has always rested with the individual sports. Now, exactly how that policy will be changed, unclear at the moment. In fact, an IOC spokesperson denied that a decision has even been made. They did confirm to the Post, however, that the IOC conducted a science-based review of the athletic advantages of competitors who are born biologically male. The findings of that study were presented in a closed-door meeting last week. The big question now is whether these new rules, if they are released in the coming months, would be enforced for the Winter Olympics in Italy that begin this February. The end of the government shutdown may soon be upon us. As I just mentioned, a handful of Democrats joined 52 Republicans to end a debate on a measure that would keep the government funded through January 30th, 2026. So yeah, we could be right back here in a little more than 2 months, but we will cross that bridge when and if we get to it. The deal the Democrats took has actually been on the table for a while. It does nothing with extending the Obamacare subsidies that Dems demanded, and it only offers the promise of a vote by the end of the year. Even when the Senate votes on this bill, it will then have to go to the House for final passage. Speaker Mike Johnson has told House members, though, to return, quote, right now, which certainly sounds like lawmakers are confident this is going to pass muster. But getting to D.C. could prove to be the trickiest part of all for lawmakers, considering the nation's air travel system is an unholy mess at the moment, of course, thanks to the shutdown. So how long will it take to get back to normal? Why did Dems take this offer now? And will we be right back here in February? To help answer all of that, I spoke with the Post's DC Bureau Chief Josh Christensen just as the Senate began voting and debating the final deal. So Josh, for starters, let's talk timeline. How long from passing this bill to reopening the government?
The Senate will debate on some amendments, including a controversial amendment involving a potential hemp ban before final passage, but that should occur in the next 24 to 48 hours, and then we'll see the House take this up. They'll have to reconvene. They've been told to come back to Washington by their leaders. They'll have to then debate these new amendments, some of which involve full-year funding for programs such as food stamps and other federally funded agencies that'll take it into September of next year. And then once it passes the House, it'll be handed back to the president for his signature, and the government can reopen.
Man, I don't know why I was under the impression when it was the filibuster busted, it seemed like, okay, we're heading to across the finish line, but there's just so many other bits of the process, the bureaucracy to get through before we can actually reopen the government.
Yeah, there's lots of different amendments that lawmakers can add to bills like this. And some of them are going to be more important for senators, and some of them are going to be more important in the House. The House only has to deal with a narrow majority of Republicans to pass this. The Senate has to deal with that, as you said, 60-vote filibuster. So they needed these Democrats to join with them.
So speaking of which, at the start of today's episode, I got into this civil war that is dividing Democrats right now. And the progressive wing is arguing that if the government indeed reopens, as things stand now, they will have gotten a big fat nothing. Now, the deal on the table is the same one Senate Majority Leader John Thune has been offering for weeks, and the Democrats have roundly rejected. So why did those 8 Dems cave, and what does this all mean for the infighting on the left?
The 8 Democrats caved because there were too many problems resulting from the shutdown for it to continue to be something that would be positive messaging for them. There's been a lot of commentators and even members of the party who have talked about some of the benefits they got. In short, those could be the wins on Election Day in New Jersey and Virginia and New York City for Democratic candidates. They're also a messaging win. I was talking to James Carville, the Democratic strategist, earlier today, and he talked about Democrats changing the conversation with this shutdown to refocus on those healthcare premiums that are going to be going up. And that's something that will continue to have effects. The people who are in favor of this, they say that will have effects into the midterms and be something for their party that they can point to.
So let's say everything that you laid out happens, passes the Senate, passes the House, goes to the president signs. What happens come January 30th? I mean, what would make voters believe that we won't be right back here having the same old conversation again come February 1st?
The fact that they took some of the worst, funding leverage points out and have pushed it back for a full year now. So there will no longer be a fight over SNAP food benefits in January. There won't be a fight over some other things that they're now funding for a year, which include, kind of military construction and legislative branch funding. And there's also going to be some back pay for some of these furloughed federal workers. So there's different things where they're taking out the pinch points. It's entirely possible that, you get to January and there might be another politically expedient reason to think about shutting it down. But after having just had the longest shutdown in U.S. history, I don't think there'll be political appetite for it, even if they do see some benefits.
Hopefully we will not be shut down again in the beginning of 2026. Let's kick off the year without absolute upheaval in Washington. Josh, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
What killed a teenage girl during her cruise vacation? 18-year-old Anna Kepner died while on a Carnival cruise ship, and her passing was reported as the ship returned to Miami from the Caribbean. But authorities have made the whole thing a bit of a mystery by failing to offer any information about the circumstances around her death, even failing to reveal who she was traveling with at the time she died. Her family says Anna was a bubbly, straight-A student who was preparing to enter the military after graduating from high school in May. And she certainly seemed, at least from where we're sitting, like a healthy teenager, a gymnast, a varsity cheerleader who, quote, was already talking to recruiters and had chosen her career path. She wanted to do something that would help her community. And Carnival offered no details, but confirmed that the FBI is involved in the investigation. Yeah. The feds are involved, so I will definitely keep an eye on this one. And finally today, from our friends at Page Six, Taylor Swift has moved out of album promotion mode and into wedding planning mode. Obviously, we all want to know who her bridesmaids will be to be chosen as part of the Swift-Kelsey wedding party. This is Taylor's squad circa 2010s, but on steroids. The U.S. Sun reports that Swift asked her friend Gigi Hadid to be a bridesmaid when these two dined at the bougie Manhattan social club Zero Bond last week. And a source confirmed to the outlet that Swift also asked bestie Selena Gomez to join her bridal party, telling The Sun, quote, Taylor wants to start the wedding process this way, building her bridesmaid group and getting everyone involved in the preparations, celebrations, and planning. Now, fans have speculated that she's asking her friends one by one each request over a private dinner. So that means Taylor's recent dinner dates with Ashley Avignon and Sabrina Carpenter were probably part of that plan, but we don't have a confirmation on those last two yet. If it is, what a cool wedding party. But guess who we haven't seen din-din with Taylor lately? Blake Lively. The former besties, well, now they've got bad blood. There used to be mad love. Honestly, at this point, I'd be shocked if Blake even gets an invite to this wedding. You, my friends, have a standing invitation right here with me. So make sure you like and follow the New York Postcast wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And I'll see you tomorrow.